Here's the New Deal that is taking place in the funding bill that was supposed to pass. And then Elon Musk was like, I'm the president. I'm the captain now. How fucking dare you? Let's take a look originally at what was supposed to happen and how, it kind of fell apart.
Begin on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are racing to avert a government shutdown after President-elect Trump and Elon Musk opposed a bipartisan deal to keep the government running.
Robin, good morning. Well, there is now a lot of uncertainty here. The House was set to vote on a bill to keep the government open, but then Elon Musk got involved, launching a pressure campaign against the bill. And now, with the holidays just around the corner and paychecks for millions of federal workers hanging in the balance, this morning Congress is now scrambling for a plan B. This morning, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson is back at square one after Elon Musk and President-elect Donald Trump torpedoed a bill to keep the government up and running. Trump now telling Republicans to get smart and tough without telling them exactly what he wants them to do next, criticizing the bipartisan bill for including too much spending, but also warning Republicans not to pass a stripped-down bill without additional spending unless they also agree to raise the debt limit, saying any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried. The original agreement would have kept the government open until March, with 100.
I'm going to say this is a masterclass in how everyone should govern and legislate going forward. I'm being super for real about this. This is something that I have routinely criticized the Democrats on. Trump is doing it. He's showing how it's done, where he's not even the president yet. And he's already bullying from the bully pulpit that he will take on, forcing the Republicans' hands to take certain initiatives. Now, the fact that he's doing that at the behest of corporations or the wealthy is one thing, but overall, the principle here is that he's wielding power and he's doing it before even becoming president. It's also probably much easier for him to do that because the current president, and you might have forgotten about this, is Joseph Robinette Biden, who, according to Wall Street Journal's incredible reporting, literally is brain dead, like medically brain dead. Aides keeping meetings short, controlling access, top advisors acting as go-betweens, and public interactions becoming more scripted. The administration denied that Biden had declined. Just remember, he's still currently the president. And as currently the president, he could at least come out and make statements about this back and forth battle that's taking place in Congress. But in the absence of any sort of interest in doing that, obviously Trump is going to dominate. Joe Biden does not give a shit at all. When you and I complained that Biden wasn't actually whipping votes for Build Back Better, they admit it's totally true. He barely talked to anyone in Congress, had like 2 cabinet meetings a year. We haven't had a president for 4 years. Yeah.
$100 billion in disaster aid and billions more for farmers. But Musk, whom Trump has tapped to lead a new government efficiency effort, launched a
I also do want to remind you guys how much people like myself, people like Michael from Pennsylvania, cover like the boring aspect of governance and cover it with an understanding of how like the legislative body works. Whenever people say, oh, you guys are just simply engaging in like vibes-based analysis, they're just saying that because they rely on their audience not to be in here in moments like this. But like I have, Mike has, Majority Report has absolutely covered these sorts of the incompetence of this current administration time and time again in moments like this. I guess it's not at the forefront of our commentary. It doesn't get clipped out. So most people who are oblivious to that will oftentimes go, you just want like bold. You just like to say things. It's so surface level. Your analysis is so surface level.
Last minute pressure campaign against it, blasting the bill as a crime, bloated with wasteful spending, saying anyone who supports it deserves to be voted out in 2 years.
Remember when we instantly recalled that the Republicans fired the parliamentarian in 2001 when he blocked Bush's tax cuts while the Democrats pretended like the parliamentarian controls the Senate? Exactly. I get into the minutia of this process all the time. I understand how it works. And for me, as someone who understands how it works, I still expect the Democrats to do a little bit better than not even bare minimum. You know what I mean? My standards for the Democratic Party as a partisan, even when I'm engaging in like some semblance of like partisan analysis, is so low, and yet they still fail to meet that standards.
There'll be a lot of hard votes in the next couple of years, and it's not always going to be the case that the the outside world, the social media audience, is going to be weighing in.
If the government shuts down, millions of federal workers, including service members, would head into the holidays without paychecks. Some would be asked to work anyway, like longtime Library of Congress cafeteria worker Willie Joe Price.
You got a whole lot of people that's going to disappoint their children because they're going to have to do a 360 to think about what they're going to do. Is it worth me buying this for my child, or should I pay my rent?
With peak holiday travel, TSA agents and air traffic controllers would also still have to work without pay. Democratic leaders now blunt.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
So what comes next year? Well, that's the big question, and it's really unclear. The speaker could try to strip out all of that additional.
By the way, some Freedom Caucus Republicans are saying they're a no on the new Trump-Musk bill. Oh, I love those guys, man. Dude, I want to hug and kiss all the Freedom Caucus guys. They have literally averted a devastating border control bill. They did this under Obama when Obama was like trying to, when Obama was working with the Republicans on a bipartisan initiative to cut Social Security, and the Freedom Caucus, the Tea Party caucus said, nah, we're not doing that. It doesn't go hard enough. I love those guys, man. They've saved this country more times than you think. They are the reason why the border bill didn't pass. Those guys have your best interest in mind sometimes. I don't know how the they do that. Their Freedom Caucus is not progressive. They are the least. They are, pound for pound, the most anti-progressive caucus in the country. They are basically a collection of rabid, oftentimes white nationalist, Koch brothers funded, anarcho-capitalist freaks. But because they are so good at obstructing, they obstruct everything on principle. They're like that guy, what's the name of the dude from Parks and Recreation? That guy, the libertarian guy that works in government just so he can undermine it from within. Ron Swanson. Yeah. No, literally. They are the Ron Swanson caucus. They're like the opposite of the Democrats in every way. Democrats do bipartisanship purely for the sake of bipartisanship. They'll be bipartisan on a bill that, like, I don't know, is the orphan crushing machine. Well, look at that. We did it bipartisan, in a bipartisan manner. Aren't we great? The Tea Party caucus, on the other hand, the Freedom Caucus, on the other hand, quite literally is the opposite of that, where they're like, nah, we're going to obstruct regardless because you're not crushing orphans enough.
Funding and spending, and just pass a bill to keep the government up and running. But the fate of that is also in doubt, and the clock is ticking with that deadline looming tomorrow night, Robin.
But Mary, as you said in your report, if they try to pass that stripped down bill, President-elect Trump says he wants it to include raising the debt limit.
Yeah, Robin.
Donald Trump wants to raise the debt limit. Donald Trump also has said that he wants to get rid of the debt limit altogether, which I'm on board with. But raising the debt limit in this situation is not actually going to be helpful for Donald. I mean, it's not going to be helpful for the Democrats at all, because as it stands, abolishing it in its entirety, good. But as it stands right now, Democrats can use the razor thin majority that the Republicans have to their advantage whenever there is a debt limit panic. And Donald Trump knows that, which is why he wants to, which is why they're putting together a package to extend the government funding for 3 months and to suspend the debt limit until January 2027, which means that every other battle that takes place from here on out until January 2027, the Democrats will have no power whatsoever. There will be no contention. Here's Jake Sherman. House Republicans are eyeing a package to extend government funding for 3 months, suspend the debt limit until January 2027. Also, $110 billion in disaster aid, health extenders with no PBM reform, no E15 changes, pay-go scorecard wiped to zero, extension of farm bill. David Dayen says this is a big no for Dems. Suspending the debt limit is not a win. Democrats should give no votes for this, and I don't think the Republicans get a majority on their own. Also, LOL, did they brick PBM reform while keeping health extenders? That's United Health in action. Also, it's not just Chip Roy and some hostage-taking hardliners who will balk at this on the Republican side. That PBM deal was months in the making, and reformers like Buddy Carter and Diana Harshbarger aren't going to like this. PBM is pharmacy benefit managers, for those of you who don't know. House Republicans are looking to abandon the effort to include reforms to pharmacy benefit managers in an end-of-the-year bill to fund the federal government. Why do Americans love government shutdown so much? No, they hate it. That's That's precisely the reason why it is a very good tool to bully the party in power, especially when the party in power does not have the capacity to whip its votes, when they have a razor thin majority. To NBC News, Donald Trump has given a phone interview where he said he doesn't just want to lift the debt ceiling, he's keen to get rid of it. The Democrats have said they want to get rid of it. If they want to get rid of it, I would lead the charge, he says. He sees it as a fake thing, no real value regarding debt control. Now, the reason why he wants to get rid of it is because he doesn't want his agenda to be undermined by any kind of obstruction that happens on his party side that the Democrats could take advantage of. There's no, get rid of it after the midterms. Let's see how that works out.
I'm also curious, Garrett, what he had to say about Elon Musk, because this suddenly momentum switch yesterday, which led Republicans to come out and defeat this, sort of began with Elon Musk on Twitter tweeting over 100 times to the point where there's a lot of speculation wondering if Musk's influence rivals that of Trump.
Right. Who is the tail wagging the dog here? What's going on? I tried to ask Trump about that. He said, look, I told Elon Musk, this is the president-elect saying, I told him if he agrees with me on this bill, he ought to say so. Now, he indicated that Musk's concerns with the CR were somewhat different from his, that Musk was mostly focused on it from a cost-cutting perspective, as is his, want as the head of this Doge commission, this sort of outside consultancy effort, if you will, to try to increase efficiency and cut spending in the federal government. So their concerns were slightly different, but the president-elect said he was very much on track with everything that Elon Musk was saying yesterday and his efforts to get this CR spiked before it could be voted on.
He tweeted 100 times. Like, is there a part of the bill that I'm not seeing that says, like, we're going to do deportation of one singular South African billionaire or something? Like, what the This is his new autistic hyperfixation, I think. Bro, get back on Diablo.
We are approaching Christmas and Hanukkah, and Americans all across this country care about this debate. They care about the specifics, but what they won't understand is when you vote no to continue funding the government to provide the services that they rely on. This is a clean CR. If you don't like it because it doesn't have a whole list of ornaments on the Christmas tree, I'm sorry. But the fact is that we are keeping the government funded. We are not shutting the government down before Christmas. And I think everyone here has a responsibility.
I think it's so gross that politicians would just be like, oh, you don't want your special interest? You don't want your Christmas ornaments? Like, the guy just described what that Christmas ornament is. That Christmas ornament is life or death for rural farms. Rural hospitals. And this motherfucker is just like, oh, you just, you want your fixins. It's nuts. Now, you understand that the government shutdown threat is fairly significant. It gives a lot of leverage to the opposition party that uses that leverage to fund certain things, because the legislative body doesn't fund anything in clean bills. That's just not the reality, unfortunately. We do not have a normal process in this country. The Dems apparently have not heard from Biden. More than half a dozen House Democratic lawmakers said on Thursday that the conference had yet to hear from the president, even as Congress scrambled to salvage a funding deal and avoid shutting down the government. Biden is literally asleep at the wheel. Maybe he's dead. We don't even know. Yeah, there's the Wall Street Journal report that I'm reminded of that said Biden has been dying for the past 4 years and he didn't actually do anything. And people hid him. His staffers hid him from the public eye. Do you know what exactly stops functioning during a government shutdown? Yeah, they just furlough a lot of the employees that work for the federal government. Like, whether you're in the Coast Guard or whether you were, there was a chatter who was talking about how during the Coast Guard, her parents were in the Coast Guard, and during government shutdowns, they just get no money. It's a massive ordeal. IRS workers and the like. I know debt ceiling will be useful for Dems politically, but it's such a stupid mechanism. No other country has. No, that's why I said I'm in favor of complete abolition of the debt ceiling. I am, however, not in favor of giving Donald Trump a fantastic gun. Why would you give Donald Trump a gift like this with no concessions whatsoever? It's very stupid.
Donald Trump, when Mike Johnson is saying, we just heard him say it, Elon and I were on a text chain together. The impact of that, assuming that Musk has equal power, perhaps more power in some indications than the president-elect of the United States, what impact do you think that's having on that inner circle?
Well, look, I think it makes everything more challenging for Speaker Johnson and for his team, who are used to doing things in the way they have been done on Capitol Hill. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, the idea that we're going to reinvent the wheel here. But what we saw coming into yesterday was a very traditional end of year kind of Christmas tree bill in which all the remaining work from the previous Congress gets dealt with before lawmakers get out of town. Elon Musk, I don't think anyone disputes that he's brilliant, but he also doesn't necessarily understand the way that this process has been done. And it's pretty clear that he doesn't care. And I think there's a number of different ways that you can look at that. It is clearly disruptive. Some Republicans think in a good way, but it has thrown a huge monkey wrench into getting this done before the government shuts down, before the end of the year. We're going to have a speaker early next year, an inauguration, all these things that have to happen. So you're selling lawmakers on a bill, on a piece of government work product that they're used to doing, and you're selling and explaining a concept to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are coming at it from the outside at the same time. That is a very difficult task to do simultaneously about the same piece of legislation that you're having to write in real time.
NBC News senior Capitol Hill.
Amazing. We are at the mercy of some of the dumbest individuals on the planet, which makes this so much funnier. Republicans made their bed. Now they have to live in this filth. A spoiled man-child. Anyway, the House is currently voting on the new government funding bill. The bill would require 2/3 of the majority to pass. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told House Democrats in a closed-door meeting that he will not vote for the new government funding deal negotiated exclusively among Republicans, according to a source in the room, putting the prospect of a new deal into jeopardy. On the other side, you have the likes of Chip Roy, who also don't want to fund this bill. The reason why they don't want to fund this bill is obviously different than the reason why the Democrats don't want to fund this bill. Chip Roy and the Freedom Caucus don't want to fund this bill because they just fundamentally are at odds with funding the government. Like, ideologically speaking, they just don't want to fund it. So any opportunity they have to stop funding the government, they're like, what do you mean? I'm in this business to stop funding the government. The Trump-backed plan to avoid a shutdown is not expected to fail because of opposition from conservative Republicans and both House Democrats. It would require 2/3 majority of the House and will fall well short. Democrats, who typically like clean debt ceiling hikes, say they can't agree to this now because that would pave the way for Trump's tax plan. I also have heard people talk about how, like, there's a hike for the congressional salary in this. And what's really interesting about it is that, like, some people believe that this is a good thing, that, like, Congress deserves a pay raise, and that this pay raise is helpful because it gives less of an opportunity for congressional leaders to be corrupted. It makes them less corruptible. I don't think so. I just don't. I don't agree with this. Like, I would much rather do a pay hike for staffers and not the congresspersons themselves. Or if there's any sort of pay hike for congresspersons, that should come alongside with limitations on what kind of funding that they can get from outside groups.